Hello again, everyone. In the last video, I covered text markup, and this video is going to cover all of the other kinds of content that are common in HTML, including images, audio, video, and inline embeds, and hyperlinks. Let's start with images. Images are done with the img tag, which is a unary element. Again, meaning that there is no begin and end tag or open and close tag, but simply a single tag, which has this trailing slash within it. The two attribute value pairs you need in pretty much every image are src equals and alt equals. Src is going to specify the location of the image file that you want to embed in your HTML document. Alt is going to specify alternative text for the image. And this is useful for two reasons. First, because it provides a text-based element for this image to display for screen readers and search engines. And second, because if the image link happens to break, the alt text will display so that viewers of the page know what that particular image was. And so you want to use some kind of descriptive text that describes the content of the image as your alt text. And those are the only two attribute value pairs that you really need with images. There are a few other ones that you'll see sometimes. So width and height are also very common ones. However, these are things that you can set really easily with CSS, and it's much more flexible to adjust the width and height of an image via CSS. So these are ones that I generally tend to avoid. The final thing to know with images in HTML is that there are certain concerns based around accessibility with images. So first and foremost, I would encourage you to avoid using images for any kind of text-based content. Again, images kind of require text to accompany them, such as the alt text. And if it's something like a header or somebody's name or something like that, inserting it as actual text rather than as an image with that text is just going to be better all around for accessibility. The second thing you need to be concerned about with images is their size. So one thing you need to be really careful about is whenever you insert a very large image file via the image tag, all of that image data is going to be pulled from the server when the user requests that page in their browser. And doing so may slow down the loading of the page, so try as much as possible to optimize your images by making them smaller so that the page loads faster and the image loads faster as a result. Next up are audio, video, and inline frame embeds. Audio and video embeds are done with the audio and video tags. These are HTML only HTML5 only tags. Prior to HTML5, audio and video embeds were much more complicated. They're simpler in HTML5. However, you still need a number of file formats because not all browsers support the exact same file format. So for instance, with audio, you may need to embed an OGG file, you may need to embed an MP3 file and a WAV file, as well as potentially other file formats, depending on your browser compatibility that you're going for. Same thing with video files, you need multiple types of files. So ultimately, embedding audio and video are a little complicated, even though they're simply the audio and video tags. You can look up tutorials for those online, However, the most common form of audio and video embed are done via embedding from third-party services, such as YouTube for video, Vimeo also for video, or something like SoundCloud or Bandcamp for audio. And these are done via iframe elements. And generally, when you're using a particular service, you can go and find the iframe embed code for a particular piece of audio or a particular video. And you can just take that code and drop it into your HTML document. As is, you can always alter some of the information about it, but you should be familiar with that because those will almost all be iframe elements, standing for an inline frame that embeds some other kind of element in there. This can also be done with embeds for things like PDFs, such as Scribed, and Prezis, or other presentation software. So iframe is a really, really common form of media embedding, and you should be familiar at the very least with its existence, and so that you recognize it when you are embedding outside kinds of media and applications. Finally, you should know how to work with hyperlinks, which are done via A tags. A used to stand for anchor, but now it's simply A tags, and these handle all kinds of hyperlinks. As with image tags, there's two general attribute value pairs that you need with images, and those are href and title. Href again is going to point to the specific thing you want to hyperlink to. This may be a file elsewhere in your website. It may be a different website altogether, or it may even be a different location on the same page. And I'll go over how to specify those specific areas. It may be a file elsewhere on your website. It may be a different website altogether, or it may be a different location on the same page. And I'll go over how to specify each of those within the href. However, knowing that the href, it may be a file on your server elsewhere on the website. It may be a different website altogether, or it may be a different location on the same page. And I'll go over how to specify each of those within the href in a bit. The title is the other generally required attribute value pair within a tag. And the title specifies your tooltip text. This is the text that will appear on hover over a link. Between your open and closed A tags, you are going to specify whatever content you want to hyperlink from. This can be anchor text, such as this right here, or it can be an image, or it can be an entire section of your page. So for instance, if you end up wanting to hyperlink from an entire block of text, you can wrap an A tag around a larger element. However, know that an A tag is an inline element. Therefore, it is not going to create a new block, and it generally is going to be within a larger block element, such as here I might have this within a paragraph. There's different types of hyperlinks, and there's three main types that you need to know how to work with. These are what are referred to as absolute, relative, and, for lack of a better word, same page hyperlinks. Absolute hyperlinks are going to point to a specific URL for a different external website. So, for instance, if you wanted to point towards google.com, you would do a hyperlink like this. And the href value for this one is the full URL you're trying to point to, including http://. www is not always required, but http:// is required. Relative hyperlinks work basically the same way, but they're going to point to a resource on your server of your website. So they're pointing to another file, such as a different page on your website, or a downloadable file, or an image, or any other file on that server. And these are specified relative to the current page. So if the current page is directly within your server's root directory, and you want to point to another file also in that root directory, all you would do is point to the name of that file. So if I have, for instance, resume.pdf, also in the same folder as this current page, I would just do resume.pdf. If, however, that resume.pdf is in a folder called, let's say, job materials, no spaces, all under all lowercase, I would just call that job materials / to indicate that there's that's the folder, and then here's the file within that folder. And you can do this with subfolders. So it's in a resume folder within the job materials folder. You can also specify going up a folder or multiple folders in the larger directory. So if, for instance, the current page is inside of a folder, but I want to actually go back up a folder to the root directory, I could do // and that would drop me back a folder. .. will drop back 2 folders, and so on. If you simply start your path name in the href with a / that will bring you to the root directory, meaning the very base directory of the website of the server where your website is. That's going to bring you back to that root directory to specify from the root directory. And so generally when I'm starting a relative hyperlink, I will always start it with a / and then move forward from the root directory, so that if anything changes with my folder structure, nothing gets too messed up with my relative links. The final type of hyperlink is, for lack of a better term, a same page or jump to hyperlink. These hyperlinks specify a different location on the same web page, and when the user clicks on the text, instead of taking them to another file or to a different website, it's going to take them elsewhere on the same page. These are a little bit more complicated than absolute and relative hyperlinks, because these require 2 elements set up here. You need the jump from and the jump to. And both of these are wrapped in A tags, and they have slightly different setups with regard to those A tags. So the best way to do this is to specify on the jump to location. This is where users will be dropped after they click the same page hyperlink. A name equals attribute. You can name this whatever you want here. I'm going to name this is my jump to. From there, jump from needs an href, and you specify the name with a hashtag or pound symbol before it. And that will specify for users, drop the user down to that location where there is the name equals attribute. These can actually be flipped, so the jump from doesn't need to be before the jump to, such as if at the very end of your page you want a back to top link, you can specify at the top an a name equals, and then at the very bottom you would be the jump from of a href equals and the pound symbol and whatever the name equals you specified at the very top. So these do not have to be jump from and then jump to. It can be jump to and then jump from. But the whole idea works basically the same way, and you have that a name equals and the a href equals paired together on these. Finally, there's two additional things to cover with hyperlinks. Hyperlinks can hyperlink to an email address, and that is specified by, in the href, specifying the email address, and before the email address, adding mail to : and that will format this so that when users click the hyperlink, it sends them to their default mail application and populates the to line with that email address. Finally, you can specify a hyperlink to open up in a new tab via the target equals attribute for that hyperlink. By default, the target equals is going to be opening within the same window, and that's the way you want it to work for same page as well as any hyperlink pointing to elsewhere on your site. But if you have an external link, it's just good user experience to open a new tab so that users don't leave your website within the same browser tab without ever really knowing that they're leaving your website. So you specify this with target equals underscore blank as the value, and that will set the hyperlink to open within a new tab. That covers images, media, and hyperlinks. The next video will cover the head element within the larger page structure of HTML. Thanks for watching.